Hello, Troy Livingston. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you, Brett Blair?
I'm doing, Prep Blair. I'm doing great. We just got back from a wedding weekend in Asheville, North Carolina. It was magical. We went on a 4 hour canoe ride down the French Broad,
Nice.
and it was this perfect day. Yeah. And we took a tour yesterday morning, a trolley tour of Asheville. I'm trying to do a tour now whenever I go someplace. Even if I've been there many times, you learn so much from the tour driver. So
Yeah,
it was
no
cool.
question. Have you ever done like the true crime tour in Durham?
No,
Yeah, okay. So when you guys move back here, let's go do that. I haven't done it either, but it'd be a fun thing to do. Maybe that'd be a good date night with the
a date
girl.
night. No, I would love that.
Yeah,
I
it's like
would
a
love
6 to 7 thing, and then we could go to dinner.
Cool.
Yeah.
No, that'd be great.
We just had a great week too. We were down at the beach with Sarah's families. All five siblings were together and their kids. It was nuts in the most wonderful way that that kind of situation is nuts. Like it just all great people. Everybody did well, but it's just an absolute circus. I loved it.
You light up when you talk about the circus.
Actually, the circus always scared me a little bit, to be honest. I'm like, what's happening here? Who are those people with the painted faces? And people are going to fall and get hurt, and the animals okay? In retrospect, anyway.
Yeah, yeah, I think you and I are both alike. We're young at heart versus our biological ages. At this wedding, my wife and I were dancing a lot, and we had older, but people later said, "You were dancing like teenagers." We're like, "Okay, I'll
Yeah.
take that as a compliment."
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. It wasn't highly skilled, but moving around a lot.
That's actually a beautiful segue into our topic today because one of my favorite quotes, which I'll butcher here, but you'll appreciate it, is the Picasso quote in which he says, "It took me a lifetime to learn to paint like a child again."
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah, it makes me think about one of my attributes is I'm a baby whisperer.
Really?
Yeah, my late wife used to drive her crazy because we'd be out and I'd see some lady with her baby, and I would say, "Can I hold your baby?" And the lady would go like, my kid doesn't like strangers." And I said, "Well, your baby hasn't met me yet." And half the time the baby would reach for me, or when I held it, the baby smiled. Like I have this energy, and I think it's because I see the world, or I want to see the world with the curiosity of a baby. And when I make eye contact with a baby, we're like, "Yeah, I get you. We're both learners."
Yeah. Yeah, I have that too. And um, I also have it with dogs and cats. Like I'm that weird guy that comes to people's houses and our dog hates men.
Not you though, right?
Yeah, not me. I don't know why. I think it's a gift
Yeah,
and it's a little odd. It is.
yeah,
It's kind of weird. It's like, really?
yeah.
Because you're just being you.
Right. No, I think that if you were afraid, the dog would know it. And yeah, no, good for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we were going to chit chat about many things, but one thing is the importance of the right mindset. And in fact, I'm getting ready to do a whole masterclass session on that next Friday on mindset. So, at the core of it is a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And those are completely different ways of looking at the world. I want to be a guy who leans into having a growth mindset until one day I don't wake up. That's my
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah.
I've had to learn that along the way. I think when I was a teenager, early college years, I had more of a fixed mindset, but I thankfully changed. What's your thoughts on that whole journey of the right mindset?
Yeah, I mean, I think, that this is the one of those never-ending processes of opening and reopening. We go through phases of I think, or those of us who are trying to pay attention to this even, I don't know about you, but in trying to be a growth mindset person, which is being open to what presents itself to me. That's how I would define it, is being open, recognizing that uh, how we label things is what they become.
I think I told you this my wife, who's from Ukraine, when we first started dating, I would ask her, like, I wanted to make plans to go on a date or do something in the future. And she would say, "We'll see." And I took it personally,
Yeah.
a little sign of rejection. And also when she would get nervous because she's translating all the time, her native language in English, she would get stuck and just say, "Never mind," which I took personally.
Yeah.
And then I've come to later realize that we'll see was growing up and more recently living in Ukraine where the future is this foggy notion that you can't really plan for. And she felt kind of weird making beautiful plans when her brother and sister are being threatened every day. So just this reluctance to step into making plans wasn't about me. It was a cultural thing. And then the never mind is a way to say I'm nervous trying to translate and speak in your native language. But I think the we'll see and
Maybe.
maybe are the kind of the same thing. We'll see. That's the best news ever. Well, we'll see. That's terrible. We'll see. Which is the mindset of being open, right?
Yes.
The best news ever could be a setback, and a setback could be a growth opportunity for the best news ever.
And it almost always is, if you'll let it be.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of my favorite discoveries, in the profound grief that I was experiencing after my marriage ended, was that anything that arises in the body is there to help you if you'll let it. So that openness to that terrible feeling in your gut or your chest or your throat, wherever you hold your stuff, it's talking to you. And it often is uncomfortable
Mm-hmm.
because it's intense.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can have the presence, the mindset, if you will, to just sit with it and let it do its thing without letting it overwhelm you, just kind of ask it to sit down next to you and be there and be present with it, it'll open up for you. It's like an object of inquiry, like, hey, take a look at me. Something important's happening for you right now. And it's happening right now. It's not happening an hour ago, 3 months ago, a year ago. It's not happening in the future. It's happening right now. And those are incredibly useful and important moments that I think we can build on and use as a way to say, okay, wow, okay, that's where I am right now. And it's an opportunity for me to do more of what I want to do with my life.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. That's so good. Yeah. I mean, to me, this whole notion of growth mindset is partially growing versus just stagnating or shrinking and being open, like you're talking about, being open to what it is without judgment to the things that come into our lives. Do you know the parable, how tall will a tree grow?
I think so.
So every tree, everywhere, every time grows as tall as it can,
Yeah.
period.
Love it.
It grows its roots as deep as it can to suck up enough water to feed the leaves at the top of the tree as it's competing for sunlight. And it'll keep doing that until it can't grow any further. And also to bear as much fruit as it can, but it also grows as tall as it can. Every tree, everywhere, every time. Humans are the only animals or things that don't grow as tall as we can. We oftentimes stop growing way before we're at our peak. It's a choice to grow as tall as you can. And I don't mean that in a grinding, work your tail off way, but being open to keep growing. And as we get older, we grow more into in wisdom versus physical strength or cognitive sharpness. We shift into a different kind of growing, but we can keep growing until we die. I love that.
Yeah.
It gives
Well,
me great
right.
hope.
Yeah. But our opportunity is constrained by, an end to our physical growth, but our psychosocial, emotional, spiritual growth doesn't know any constraint other than ones we put on it ourselves.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. And I can, as you were describing that analogy too, or the parable, there are some really wonderful things about trees in particular, I think, that are really nice metaphors, which you started to describe, which is if you could image a tree, it's about what you see is about half of what is actually there,
Yeah.
which is really, there's a nice human analogy in there as well.
Yeah.
There's another really beautiful thing about leaves and trees, which are that the job of the leaf, in addition to taking in all the energy it needs to perform photosynthesis and take care of all of the engine of the tree's health, is that trees have to deal with wind, which is that unpredictable thing that is constant in their world, in their life. And leaves are incredible at shedding the wind, not acting like little flags. Like if you've ever had a flag in your hand and you
Yeah.
do this, right? If leaves behaved like flags do, all of our trees would be tumbled over. So there's this incredible biomechanical property of a leaf that allows it to shed the wind, and you'll see them in the wind. They'll curl up, they'll bend, they'll move in a direction, but their whole job is to bend without breaking. And I love this idea as a metaphor for what we can do as well. That all that emotional stuff that's happening for us as life does its thing. We have to be able to shed that as well, to literally let it come through us, pass through us, and not get knocked over. Occasionally we do, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we do get knocked over
Yeah.
and maybe need to do some regrowing, but that we don't even recognize that it's that flexibility that makes that giant tree possible.
Yeah. That's so good. Well, I think you also know if a tree grew taller and taller in an environment where there was no wind, you know what would happen?
Gas, but
It would die. It would reach a point where it would just fall because that wind is
keeps it
what gives
strong.
it strength.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
like they did this, they grew in a terrarium, a big domed
yeah. A biosphere,
biosphere. They have to have fans blowing wind
huh?
because if it was just the tree with no wind, it'll eventually get so heavy it'll fall because it doesn't have any strength to withstand. Isn't that cool?
Yeah,
And
that's awesome.
one of my favorite books is The Obstacle Is the Way by Ryan Holiday, but that really helped me reframe the challenges that I go through in life are opportunities to grow stronger and to look at that challenge as a gift because on the other side of me climbing over that hill, I'm a stronger person for an even bigger challenge later.
Yeah.
If there were no challenges, I'd be a little whiny baby.
Well, okay, so there's a good one. I'll challenge you on that.
All right.
You could be that. You could have chosen to be a whiny baby. You faced some incredible challenges in your life, Brett, and overcome all of them. And you did that because you said, I don't want to be a whiny baby. That's not the person I am. That's not who I want to be. And some days I'm going to feel like a whiny baby inside, but that's not me. I'm not gonna be that guy.
No, I agree. I chose that.
Yeah.
And others, unfortunately, don't choose that and they face challenges that are inevitable and crumble or retreat or run from it and hide and be small. But yeah, I'm thankful that I have a mindset that I can grow, I will grow through the difficulties. And on the other side of this challenge is another version of me that's stronger
Yes.
and more empathetic. There's not just strength, but other good characteristics, I believe.
Right. And how does one do that? You decide that, like, for example, if it's fear that you're dealing with, like I'm reimagining my personal path, my career. What is it going to look like in my late 50s into my 60s? And it's not the identity that I have carried along forever in my career. And so that brings up a lot of fear for me about letting that go and embracing the new one. So this is a little, yeah, run toward the fear is kind of one of my mantras these days, which is how we find that mindset, right? Like whatever that quality is that you're working in yourself, right? It's that touch point. What would a fearless person do here? Is that great question about, okay, if that's who I want to be, what would that look like?
Yeah, no,
What would I do here? Because it's not coming naturally to me, or I wouldn't be asking the question
yeah.
or experiencing the fear.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love you. Affirmations are huge. I love that. What was it? Fear is false evidence appearing real. I think of that. I think jump scared.
Mm,
Don't wait till there's no fear. There's always fear. Just have the courage to move forward in the fear. And I'm
yeah,
talking to myself right now about
of
that.
course. Yeah.
I'll keep hopefully leaning more into that until I die.
I don't know if it's true or not, but I've heard a story that some of the plains, Native Americans who lived on the plains, in the shadow of the Rockies, they watched and witnessed buffalo running toward storm.
Mm,
And the explanation for that is the faster you get to the storm, the faster it passes over you,
yeah. No, I love that.
you know?
I
Yeah,
love that. And
I do too. And if things are going to go wrong, let's get them going.
face it.
Yeah.
Go into it. No, there's another story there is that situations in life are like the weather, always changing. And so after that storm, there's sunshine.
Yes.
And those buffalo knew that. They ran through it. If they ran with the storm, they'd be a long time.
Yeah. And I've heard a buffalo took a long time to figure it out,
They may run them off a cliff.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Run away from it. Yeah. Eventually you'll run out of ground, right? It's actually a pretty good analogy.
I'm a geek about resilience, and there's a metaphor. I'm studying this right now. It's called the sailboat metaphor about getting through the difficulties in life. But as a captain of a boat, sailboat, let's say, and there's a storm coming. It's your own thoughts and emotions and actions that'll determine whether you get that boat through that storm right or not. Sometimes you just go right through it. That's the right smart decision versus trying to go sideways from it or away from it. You have wisdom to know, but on the other side of that storm, there's sunshine. This is not, a forever weather event. Seasons come and go, storms come and go. And a resilient captain with a growth mindset will say to himself, not only will I get this boat through this storm, I'm going to come out of it a better captain. Like I'm going to learn things through this journey that are going to help me next time I face a storm
Yeah.
versus avoiding it, trying to run from it, or try to just crawling up a wall and hope somebody else takes the wheel. All those things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's funny.
Yeah, yeah. I'm an amateur pilot, and those are the flying in the clouds or avoiding a storm or denying the danger that lies ahead of you are all incredibly dangerous things. And having the wisdom and experience to know that this isn't a fight I'm willing to pick is also super important. But that openness to what this brings up for me in that moment, the captain making the decision, one of the most important things I think we want as wise leaders are to have some options,
Mm-hmm.
and our mindfulness, which is a word that I think it's overused, but our sense of what's going on right now and knowing how to, and this to me is why meditation is so important, because prayer, whatever you do to slow yourself down and recognize the mental world that you're creating for yourself so that you can sort of roll up to that four-way stop sign, pause, look both ways, and decide I'm choosing to go this way. And in retrospect, that might have been the wrong way, but at the time, it was the best decision you could make.
Good.
Yeah,
I this weekend in Asheville, I was driving. Asheville's kind of a crazy traffic city.
it is.
We were at a four way light, and the light went green. I did what I always do. I think I looked both ways, and I looked, and here came a car, just barreled through the right in front of us, just barreled through it.
Yeah,
My wife thanked me, and it just could have so easily been different. I
yeah,
could have easily just gone and bam.
yeah,
So maybe that's an example of I had the wisdom then to look both ways, even though I had a green light. Whew. And
yeah.
I'm growing. I think I am growing and observing those blessings of the things that could have gone worse that didn't. And in that case, I was a good, thoughtful pilot. By the way, I am also I was very close to having my private pilot license, and I started getting migraines.
Boy, yeah,
Honestly, I always got them, but I never admitted it. When I get migraines, I lose part of my vision, and I realize probably shouldn't be flying an airplane if I can't see the controls.
yes,
So I paused all that. But this Saturday, I'm going up with my wife.
really.
She bought me a 1.5 hour flight at RDU when I get to be the pilot, and I'll have a pilot with me, and she'll be in the back. So I'll get to fly. Just
Sweet.
I love flying. I think I used to be a bird.
Yeah,
I know I used to be a bird,
yeah,
and
awesome.
me flying a little Cessna, so much fun. And
Yeah.
I hope one day these migraines. I haven't had one for like 3 years. I hope I'll get to the point I can declare those gone, take the flight physical, and get behind the cockpit again because I would love that.
Well, yeah, and for the record, I am not and never have been a licensed pilot, but I have flown airplanes, and I I grew up with people who are pilots, and so I've flown a lot, but never formally done the things that you're supposed to do to be able to. So I've never been the official pilot in command, I guess is the right way to say it.
Yeah, I think we're
So
probably pretty similar.
yeah.
I
Um,
haven't given up on that though. I
No,
love
me either. But
love
here's the deal. So just, with the migraine thing, just make sure that if you do it now, just make sure you have a safety pilot with you.
have
Because
somebody
I
with.
get them too, and so at this age, we probably shouldn't be flying by ourselves without somebody who could help us
That's a good point. Just
if we were incapacitated.
always fly with somebody who can fly.
Yeah, or at least like I would go flying with my stepdad, and he knew I could land the plane if something went wrong.
Yeah,
And so, and that was not an optimal situation, but that it would have worked.
yeah. You would have survived.
Yeah, right. The airplane might not have, but we would have.
I was thinking back before we got on the call. I was trying to think in my life when I've had events where I was either helped or I went through a journey to viewing things differently in this mindset piece. Like I remember my first marriage, it ended, and I was talking to my coach about it. I felt really terrible about what was happening because when I said I do, I meant it. Like literally, divorce wasn't even a word in my vocabulary, and then it fell apart. And talking to him about it, he said to me, my coach said, "You're going to be able to help so many people with what you're going through," and that just shifted it. Like, okay, this isn't only a all dark bad end thing, but I'm going to be able to help others through it. And then I was thinking about I opened a recruiting company in 2007, took off like a rocket ship, and then 2 years later, the economy died, and it was dying. I was getting divorced,
Yeah.
alimony, could hardly make my mortgage payment. It just felt so dark. And a friend of mine, over a couple of drinks, helped me. He walked through with me. What's the worst that could happen? And he asked me that question. I said this. He goes, what next? That. And what next? That. And I finally I was living under a bridge somewhere. And he goes, and what next? I said, I go find a job. But the point was, I didn't perish.
Yeah, exactly.
And that journey of what's the worst that could happen and talking through it to the very end, and it's not your own death, for me was like liberating, awakening of I've got options here.
Yeah, options. See, there it is again.
And I'm going to survive and I'm going to grow and come out of this on the other side. And that's been true. I've several of those, but in both cases, another one when my son was struggling, but asking a wise person asking me, what's the worst that could happen, really helped guide me through a
Yeah.
review of it that I
That's a
wanted.
great, well, that's a great mindset tool as well. And as I hear you describing it, also, so here's another version of that. And we accelerate you to where the end is you actually do die.
Yes, you do.
How do you want to spend the time between now and the day that that happens? Do you want to spend it miserable and running and afraid and feeling sorry for yourself? Or do you want to try to suck every bit of brilliance out of every minute you have left?
No, I
What do
love
you want, Brett?
no, that to me, that's awesome. I thank you for bringing that up. When I coach people, at some point in our journey, we draw a lifeline.
Yes.
When you're born, I have them do this. Draw a line. What year were you born? And then if you had your magic wand and you could go with great health, at what point do you die? That's hard for a lot of people. They don't even want to think about that. And then we draw a line where we are right now, and I remind them everything before now is over. Erase all that. You're here right now today. You got 40 years left. Is there some point that you want to be financially free? At some point, you make goals around that, but live with an awareness that best case, you're going to live that long. And then could be today's your last day. You don't know. And then whatever it is between now and then, live each day fully, fall in. And I'm good at that because I lost my wife to an early disease. I'm not great at that, but I'm a lot better than I used to be of what you just said. Living all in, knowing that I'm going to die. And when that happens, there's another version of me somewhere, but this version on earth is done. And whatever money I've made, it doesn't matter anymore. Whatever things I have are no longer mine.
Yeah.
And I'm super motivated to experience all I can. That's my happiest self is experiencing cool things
Yeah, exactly.
with my wife.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things too that I'm curious to ask you about is when did this idea of focusing on mindset, when do you remember it coming into your life?
When I in 2007 at 46 years old, I hired a coach.
Your coach brought it in for you.
Yeah, I mean, I went straight from high school to college to career to 20 years in a corporate career. I'm way diminishing. There was a lot of good then. I was on a good career path and disciplined and responsible, ethical, all those things. I was not a dreamer. I was not reflective on what is my purpose, what are my passions, what are my gifts, what am I here for. I was all about raising a family and providing and corporate life. And in my mid 40s, I had this really uncomfortable feeling settle over me that I'm not making a difference in the world. I'm making good money, raising a family. And I think it might have been typical midlife thing because my youngest was approaching graduate from high school. The marriage was not good. So those two things might have added to it. But I gave in. I felt these feelings of dissatisfied with my career and my life. Reached out to a mentor of mine about this, who became my coach. He shared with me, he was helping me find a new job, but he said, "Hey, have you ever thought of owning your own business? Because if you ever want to, this would be a great time. And that question changed my life. It gave me permission to like think about that. And the more I thought about that, the happier I got.
Yeah.
And then when I was a little boy, I knew I wanted to help people. I knew that I wanted to be a teacher.
Yeah.
My dad talked me out of that, and I wanted to be a writer, and he talked me out of that. Well, didn't neither one made any money,
Yeah.
so I became an engineer that got paid really well. So anyway, I started my own business, hired Tom Hill as a coach, and he started pouring into me a philosophy of growth and a shift. I used to look at personal development as for weak people who couldn't make it in the real world. Come to learn how wrong I was. That the smartest people can commit to their personal growth forever. And so I became a real student of personal development and eventually became a coach myself. But that's when it happened in my mid 40s. And I'm thankful that I spent 2 decades in a different career because I can relate to it. Many of my clients are in that life, but I'm really thankful I got out of that life and I'm living a life now where I get to experience what shows up and grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I heard somebody recently refer to that, that what you described, your career path, your dad, those influences, as saying, some of us just always order off the menu and we don't have any idea that we can go off the menu, or we don't even have to look at it. Like I have a best friend who's going through an incredibly difficult time right now. His wife was just recently diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer. And so they're in one, big time right now. But this is the guy who at a restaurant will say, just bring me your favorite thing from the menu.
I love that.
And doesn't that take a kind of guts and confidence about the human who's in front of you, the restaurant, the food? Like, I just have always admired that about him and anybody else who does that.
No, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
I
Because
love that. You talk about and stepping into openness to variety of whatever shows up.
right. I mean, how often do you you have that buddy who stares at the menu and always orders the same thing? Like he takes 15 minutes and always orders the same thing, right?
Why all the effort?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then the question for life is, isn't that how it is? As a kid growing up, you ate what got put in front of you, right? And that's how the rest of life is. Like you take it as it comes. You tried to go to you went to the engineering restaurant. So there was a certain number of kinds of dishes on that menu, that you could eat. And you chose those for a long time. Now you're at that point in life where you're like, wow, I don't have to eat off that menu. I can make my own menu here.
Right. No, I love that.
Yeah.
And I learned, for me anyway, what I thought I wanted to do as a little boy is prove true, helping people,
Yeah.
writing, primarily people. I'm a people person, not a machine person or a finance person or an environmental person. Those are all interesting. But I'm the happiest when I'm helping another human flourish.
Yeah.
And specifically helping another human flourish versus helping another person get better. Like I didn't choose therapy on purpose because it's just I think I'm too empathetic. I'd rather help a healthy person grow than a unhealthy person get better. Thank God for those people. I've been helped a lot by therapists, but I tell my friends I'm a therapist for healthy people.
I was just going to ask you that, like, how you think, I think this is one of the great questions about the world we live in as coaching becomes more prevalent too. How someone like you, who has a PhD, thinks about the difference between therapy and coaching. How do you explain that?
Yeah. Therapy helps a person get from, let's say, -5 to -2 on a scale of health, and or maybe -2 to 0. And coaching helps somebody get from a 1 to a 4,
Okay, I like that.
4 to a 6, or a
Yeah.
6 to a 10. Then, by the way, this is specifically where positive psychology, the science of positive psychology, that's the definition of it, helps a healthy person towards more well-being, towards more flourishing, where traditional psychotherapy and psychology helps a person who has some emotional, psychological challenges improve. So I'm literally stealing Dr. Martin Seligman's differentiation between traditional psychotherapy and positive psychology. And to me, coaching is very close to science of positive psychology. It's future oriented, growth oriented, opportunity pursuing versus past oriented, uh, pain mitigating, therapeutic, moving away from some trauma or difficulty to a more stable place. Now, what do you agree with that definition?
Yeah, the last half is the way I always describe it, more so than the first half, although I love the number line sort of, yeah, digging out versus the aspirational pieces. I also think, yeah, I mean, one of the ways I think about it too is with therapy. I'm also my way of making sense of that world because I have used therapists as well with varying degrees of success is that therapy feels more, yeah, past oriented, unwinding, making meaning, for example, out of really tough things. You know, I do believe in the idea that we do need to make meaning and have a way to tell ourselves a story that's integrated somehow and helps us to use that story to move forward, to
Yeah.
make sense of it somehow.
Huh?
And I feel like that's more of what we want to be focused on in therapy. And also because we're recognizing that we're moving into pathological states for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
That may also show up in coaching, and it's not like there isn't a Venn diagram. I mean, I don't know about you, but my favorite clients are both working with me as a coach and with a therapist because they're untangling that stuff and then like working on what's to come here with me, and that's always fun and interesting.
No, I agree. That I love that. But to be able to work with you on what's to come, there needs to be a certain base level of functioning that's not too held back by dysfunction or pathology.
I think in a recent conversation we had, I talked to you about this notion that I have around how to do anything, which is prepare, execute, and reflect. And it's kind of like that in some ways. Getting ready to do the thing is sort of like I need to process that. That's sort of the therapeutic. I don't know if that's the right way. Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe therapy is the reflection piece. The preparation happens with the coaching and the execution. I mean, it's a self-reinforcing cycle in any case, but it feels kind of like the same thing. One's sort of more backwards looking, one's more forward looking. You need to do both
Yeah.
so that in the moment, you're benefiting from having prepared a little bit, but also made sense of what's happened before.
No, that's a good point. I've had therapy several times, always during events like through divorce or through my wife, her illness. And every case, I become really good friends with my therapist like right away, and then we end up becoming just friends, not client coach or client therapist. But it's helped me a lot. It's helped me a lot. I'm very thankful for that. But
Yeah.
I believe I'm a big dreamer. I believe the best is yet to come. I'm super optimistic, and I that's how I live my life, and I want to help others that are open to that hitch onto that wagon of their own future, and not in a naive way. I know there are problems,
Yeah.
and I think we're more helpful to solve our problems around us if we're healthy, purpose driven dreamers ourselves. You can be an optimistic, healthy, big dreamer and participate in the problems in the world in a better way. I believe some people get on me, but you're just so optimistic. You're not realistic. I go, no, I'm aware. I just don't watch the same news channel all day, every day.
Yeah. That's not a good thing to do if you if you want to be an optimistic person.
Doesn't
No,
matter which one either.
no, it doesn't. Yeah. Yeah. Because it's not designed to make you feel happy.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is, it's interesting that you say that too, because I think there are lots of different, the optimism, for example, that you have. I think enthusiasm is definitely a quality I see in people who have growth mindset. And I guess inherently they have to believe that better is possible always. But there are varying degrees of the kind of optimism that you're describing, where some people get overwhelmed by our relentless positivity. Like, can you just give it a rest, Brett?
That was my first wife. God bless her.
Yeah,
Now, my reaction to your "some people" statement was I've grown in my ability to be politely independent of the opinions of other people.
yeah, yeah. That's great.
The old version of me would be too whatever, driven by their opinions, and temper my enthusiasm because it bothers my buddy who thinks I'm too optimistic.
Yeah,
We're all different,
yeah,
just like I don't want to be around somebody completely negative.
No, I don't have time for that.
I love everybody, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time with that person.
Totally.
And
Yeah.
I like it's okay to be weird, as long as you're not breaking any rules and you have integrity and you're ethical about it.
Yeah.
Weird is good.
I think so. Yeah. Well, I think weird is creative, like I think that's an important thing. And the sensitivity to what others think. I feel like part of what we're doing right now, this experiment that you and I are having, one of the things that I know I need to do to in order for me to be able to help people out there in the world in the way that I know is commensurate with the gifts that I have to offer is I have to get my message out there, and I have to do more of this. I have to create more content, for example. And I, this week, have been wrestling with a realization that I feel nervous and embarrassed about doing that kind of work and having all of my old career people watch that and see it and judge me. I'm creating this total fantasy. I'm creating this whole fantasy world about about things that I can use to slow myself down in making this content that I know I need to do in order to become the thing that I know I want to be, that I am.
Yeah.
I and so watching that again, in this thing, I know that in order for me to get there, that's what I have to do.
Yeah.
But those other people's opinions things, just they find their way. They're like they find their way in. And for me
Yeah.
too, I would love to be less, because we're people focused people, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, we like to be liked.
Yeah.
Some people enjoy, I think, being despised. I'm not one of them.
Now, I relate to what you're saying, but and I've learned. I'm not saying I'm better at it than you are. I've learned this because I've made lots of career shifts. Every one, like I went from engineer to corporate guy, and then corporate guy to recruiter, recruiter to coach, now PhD coach. The people that knew me as an engineer will never hire me to be their coach ever. They didn't hire me to do recruiting, and I was their best buddy. And as we grew in the corporate world,
Yeah,
there's a in the Bible that says you can't be a prophet in your own land. Jesus' teenage buddies didn't see him as a Messiah. They saw him as the carpenter's kid.
yeah,
So I've learned that my best customers, clients, are the people I haven't met yet.
yes. Yeah, it's funny that you said that, because that's exactly the conclusion I came to, which is those are not your people. Those are not the people you came here to support and help.
Yeah,
The most important thing that you have to do is to let people know that you're available for them
yeah.
and let them make a choice.
And let my buddies from college and high school, they're scratching their head. Like, what in the world happened to Brett?
Yeah,
And they don't really mean it in a bad way. They just don't understand me.
yeah,
I'm 64. So many of those guys are on their boat fishing or playing golf. And
yeah,
they think I'm still frantically at it. And yes, not frantically, but
yeah,
I'm very much alive, not on my boat playing golf. That's okay. There's different places for different people.
yeah,
Um, but I had to learn not to let that hold me back. I think it's Jim Rohn who said, or Wayne Dyer. I love Wayne Dyer. He says we need to learn to be independent of both the good and the bad opinions of other people. So that means we need to do our thing not because of praise. That's the good opinion. Don't be affected by criticism. That's the bad opinion. And just whatever it is I was created to do and be, do that, be that, and trust that that's the right thing to be doing and being. And then, but Brene Brown adds on top of it, it's Theodore Roosevelt's quote, don't listen to the people in the grandstands throwing tomatoes at you, but do listen to the people on the court or on the
in the ring,
arena.
in the
And so
ring.
I'm shifting my independent of other people's thinking to be, I am interested in the opinions of others in the arena with me.
Yes,
Like if you gave me some feedback, some critical feedback, I would listen to that.
yeah,
I don't want to be whatever. That's just you. No, I respect you. I want to grow from feedback from others that are in the arena. It all takes discernment.
yeah. And well, and another piece of that is walking that fine line between belief in yourself, confidence, and humility.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Remembering that to have some softness around things that feel sharp, that to let those in, because to at a very difficult moment in my life when I lost a job, my mom sent me a quote and it said, if you find somebody who's willing to give you honest feedback, follow them like you would a person following someone to a buried treasure.
Oh, your mom sounds really wise.
She was there, yeah, for sure. She is very wise. But it was good. It was a good reminder that these things that come up that sting us sometimes are opportunities for us to look with fresh eyes at kind of how we might have conducted ourselves differently or saw things differently than we did. And remember that we're constructing that reality all the time. And
Yeah,
so the more options we have to see it in different ways, I think we would agree in our case, we always try to give all the people involved the benefit of the doubt that what they're trying to do is the right thing, even if it feels horrible to us. We give
yeah,
them the benefit of the doubt, and we listen, and we take some of it or all of it, right? But
right.
we do recognize that we always have the opportunity to have behaved differently or done better. Did we fully operate by the four agreements, or our Rotary
Yeah,
pledge? Did we do
your
that?
concern. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's good advice. On the same time, though, if we let criticism, other people's opinions get in too much, because there's haters out there or people that just have different views on things, they'll definitely slow us down. I had to. I've written a couple of books, and the first time I got a bad review on Amazon on a book I wrote, it broke my heart. And then some wise person told me, dude, until you have some bad reviews, not enough people have read it.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
now I have a newsletter, and
Yeah.
instead of used to be, I would send it and then wait for the unsubscribes and really wonder what happened. I just saw him last week. I can't believe he did that.
Yeah.
And now I'm trying to get to the point now. If I don't get a number of unsubscribes, I don't have enough people opening it. It's like it's funny, but it's all the games you play to deal with rejection. I grew up in a family that hated salespeople, like literally capital F, hated salespeople, and it took me decades to unwind that in my own self because I'm a salesperson now, and I was so afraid of rejection early in my entrepreneur career because my parents hated salespeople. To me,
Yeah.
salespeople meant
You're going to get taken advantage of.
so. Why am I going on this? But so I still am affected by criticism. I'm just trying to get more mature in my way I handle that.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what I'm getting at is I think there's a balance there. It's, being open. What you did there with the rejections, for example, totally makes sense. But then you reframe.
Hmm. And
And
learn from it.
yeah, the reframing is how do I use that constructively?
Right, right, right.
And
I want to back to your point about facing your fear of what your colleagues think of what you're doing now. People you haven't met yet need to hear from you. And
yes.
it's that audience that is propelling me to do TikToks. And my high school buddies are giggling at it. That's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and the thing that I love about that too, I think for both of us is that we're only sharing what we absolutely believe in.
Yeah,
There's just nothing but authentic, like, take it or leave it. Like you don't have to believe what I believe. I'm just telling you that I'm leading a pretty damn good life, been through some big challenges, hard stuff, things that are troubling, but people would kill for my problems now, so I'm not telling you my way is the best way, but I'm telling you it's a way that's been incredibly helpful to me. And I've had to build it over a lifetime of difficulty, of good things and bad things, but I've worked at it my whole life. And what I've come up with is a whole suite of tools and ideas and remedies, emotional, spiritual, etc., that have worked for me. It's just like if you told me your nose was stuffed up and I'd ask you, hey, have you ever tried a neti pot? Right? Have you ever irrigated because it's really kind of amazing what happens when you do that. Same thing. Like try this mindset deal. It
yeah,
works.
yeah. That's so good. That's so good. Well, hey, we've been at it for an hour.
Yeah. Let's let's find out what we did.
Well, and so let's tell the audience what you do and how they can get in touch with you.
Okay, great. So my name's Troy Livingston, and my goal in life is to support people in becoming the person that they want to be, taking advantage of the person that they have been. And if they want to know more and get in touch with me, you can find me at troylivingstoncoaching.com.
Beautiful. Well, I'm Dr. Brett Blair, and my purpose in life is helping other people flourish. I'm 64 and have been through a lot, as have you. And I wake up every day happy and on fire for life. And I want to help other people do the same thing. I do it through one-on-one coaching. I have a couple of master class products that I have, and I do some speaking about resilience. And you can find me at brettblairphd.com and on TikTok at brettblair3.